Hey guys, super excited to be talking to you guys again. It is another episode of the Speak Easy podcast where we go behind the scenes of what it is to be the successfully paid speaker or author. With that being said, I am your host, Altavis Pelzer, the voice coach, founder of the World Voice League. Not just that, guys, I have an amazing guest for you. And I've known this guest for maybe about 2 years, possibly going on 3. And he has been fire and intensity every time I talk to him. Like I do not see him ever tired. I don't know. I don't know if he takes no dose. I don't know if he just has like coffee, just going straight into the veins or what. But he is so high energy and I love it because it resonates. Every time you see him live, it makes you want to see what he's talking about. It makes you want to join him. It makes you want to go and communicate with him and find out what does Mr. Fortune have going on for us today. So with that being said, I want to say, hey, Mr. Fortune.
What's happening? What's happening? What's happening?
Oh, he
like, how am I going to be today?
How you going to wait? Pause. Time out. How you going to let me do that? Introduction, and then you gonna echo what's happening. That ain't how you be introduced.
You gotta ease into it, man. You gotta ease into it. You gotta that, and then just you know what I'm saying? Like just
okay. So you coming in slow. Okay, I get it. But let them know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Excellent. I appreciate you. First off, Altavis, Unicorn Nation, all out there. Look. Speak Easy Nation podcast. We loving this. Look, man, you talking about high energy. I'm seeing you going live like multiple times a day, and you've been doing it since I've met you. You've been inconsistent with that. But then all I hear, you're always smiling and so forth. That talks about the energy you have there. So of course, when you get to cross from someone with that type of energy, you almost have to be dead to not feel some of that energy and build up off of that. So I appreciate your energy to help me. As speakers, that's how we are. We feed off of the people we're talking to. So I appreciate that. But I am a father, first and foremost, and a child of God. So put those two together. But I am a high performance strategist, which is part of the reason why my energy is up. One, because I love what I'm doing when I'm speaking. 2, because yes, I do drink a lot of coffee and tea, but only in the morning. I stop that around 2 or 3 o'clock because that's what high performance says. I don't want to mess with my sleeping patterns. And I'm at a standing desk, which is another way for me to keep my energy up. I found out when I was sitting down at a desk trying to talk, I'm all like cool and talking just to the camera. And I'm like, I feel like I'm energized, but it's not coming across. But when I stand up, it's kind of hard to be like, what's that? I have to give full energy because I'm standing up and I got full arm movements. I can jump back and forth and spin around when I get really excited. And you might see all of that here today. But the other piece of that is I am a book consultant. That's one of my biggest passions is being able to help entrepreneurs and authors to get their message out into the world so they can start booking more stages, to start building their businesses with multiple streams of income, but also to start generating more leads. That's one of the beauties of it. And today I'm actually in the process of writing another blog post about that, about a books, probably be a live stream sometime today, more than likely. It'll be on how books are a triple threat, as far as that going into the market, a triple threat of marketing, just like your website should be, but it's another way of doing that.
So now you get to see why I say he's high energy, right? I understand. I know. You're like, wait. Okay. I'm going to catch in. It's almost like jumping double dutch. You just got to make sure that you get in. Don't get smacked by the root. Just make sure you get in and you ready when you get in that root. With that being said, today's topic is all about, attaining the fortune through performance, publishing, and recovery. And, because these were the 3 key points that you typically hit on. But not just that. I want to first say, where would you start in these 3 points? The performance, the publishing, or the recovery? Simply because you have so many people that have been pushing this idea of fake it till you make it. But is that really the way to go?
Great question. So the first thought that came to mind is it depends. And I hate that answer when you get it, but that's just kind of how my brain thinks. I think in the black and white, and then I always come back to the gray. And what I mean by that is I absolutely believe in this phrase, which is God can't steer a parked car, period. God can't steer a parked car. So if what that means is if I get moving forward with productivity, for example, or high performance, if I start moving in that, and that's not the way for me, as I start moving toward that, just like your GPS direction says, turn, you missed your turn, it's going to redirect you. God will redirect you, like, you know what, you're not ready for productivity right now. Step over this way. And here's why I say that, because that's exactly how I started, right? Well, I started with recovery, then I moved into like, all right, I'm about to go out and start doing productivity. That's what I really wanted to do when I first got my business started, right? And when I started talking to this spiritual business coach, she told me to stop stealing God's joy, God's glory. So when she told me to stop stealing God's glory, a tear came to my eye. And I fought that back because at that time I wasn't really completely connected with my emotional side. I was still going through recovery and reconnecting with that side of myself. That and I just wanted to man up because I was on a business call. So the other thing that happened after that call is she told me, she gave me a challenge, and this is a free session. So she over delivered in this session, a business piece there. She told me to go live stream and tell my story. And now from that, I started talking about my recovery. And then it came back around to productivity, and then it came back to book consulting. I've wanted to help people write books since I was in college, but I never got around to doing it, right? But from that conversation, I published my first book 5 months after that, okay? 5 months after that, I published my first book. I also got my first paid speaking engagement 5 months after that conversation. Because I started moving, saying this is what I wanted to do, and God steered me towards someone who's happened to be spiritual to realign me. My point again being, if you're going to start, all three of them help you, whatever you're trying to go through. You're focused on recovery. You're gonna have to become more productive. It's just going to happen because as your life gets more aligned, you start getting rid of the things that's on the side. You start getting more focused on the thing that's in front of you, so you can be more productive. And when I talk about productivity, I talk about being efficient, effective, and excellent in all that you do. Right. The last piece about that is enthusiasm. That's the fourth E that goes along with that performance, with high performance and productivity. Okay. That's why you see the energy comes across there. And if you're looking at the book consulting, writing a book is definitely a way of being more productive. One, again, because you have to organize your time, your energy, working at certain times during the day. Because when I consult with people, in the first step in my publishing process, my book creating process is to understand how you are using your energy. And so that you're writing during your most creative part of the time. So you start creating the right habits in your day so that you create an environment for you to create them. I have a lab I call it my lab downstairs where I get creative at. When I step into a creative energy just envelops me because that's where I always go to write, right? I have my cup of coffee up there whether I drink it or not. So they all work together because in that process of writing the first book, my recovery just developed so much more because I got that. We talked about it before the call, talking about how can someone else know you better than you know yourself. And my sister asked me that, and I was talking to you about it. And the thing about it is, we talk about how most people don't want to live to assess their life. But we look at books such as Think and Grow Rich, and one of the key pieces of Think and Grow Rich is the self-assessment. How do you know what's going on with you and what you need to improve if you don't look at yourself? And you heard the quote before that says, the unexamined life is not worthy of living, right? So if I haven't looked at my life, I can't do anything more. And when you write a book that's from the heart about what you know, about you love, you are looking at your life for clues of the successes that lead for the next person, but also looking for your failures so you can find out how to correct them going forward or how to help somebody else miss that step. So you're examining your life. So all three of them work. But you still got to rely on God in the process to guiding you.
So on point. And I want to go back to a part, because we always get into this mindset of, I want to take everybody with me. I don't want to leave nobody behind. I don't want to cut anybody off. I don't want to say no. I don't want to shut down any opportunities. But when we have that moment of realigning ourselves, you really have to take some honesty medicine and say, everybody can't go with you. And so let's talk about what that really looked like in your journey.
Oh yeah. So there's a lot of people that I had to cut off. There's one of my favorite quotes came from a guy named Charlie Tremendous Jones. He says that you'll be the same place 5 years from now, except for the books you read and the people you meet. Okay, so first off, again, there comes books again there, okay? But secondly, think about what that means, okay? I wasn't the one that I listened to my parents. They told me all great advice, and they taught me about, of course, who you're hanging with is going to determine, where you're going to go in life, right? So when I was young, I was constantly around the nerds. That's who I was around. And so and when I got into high school and college, I was a nerd and I loved it. I didn't care. I was in all accelerated classes. It didn't matter to me because I accelerated, right? I excelled. That's who I recognized as who I thought who I was, right? That's who I identified with, right? But then I have this athletic side of me, right? So I was always around athletes too. So I'm an athlete. But then I had this thespian, I had this artistic side of me. So and any time during the day, you can see me hanging out with somebody who's in a band, somebody's in drama, whatever. I might be hanging out with them, and I go from crowd to crowd to crowd. Now, that's a great thing because it made me multifaceted. But the bad thing about it is I really didn't know who I was. There's a reason why I say that. Because as I got older and I started trying to figure out where I wanted to be in my life, I remember my auntie told me, or my cousin told me in college, he says, you don't need a whole bunch of friends. You just need your family and a core, maybe about 5 friends at the max. And I was like, nah, man, everybody's going to love me. I didn't want to do that. But as the older I got, the more I realized, like, it's true. I don't need all these people because people aren't always aligned to where I'm going. Right? And I also have to remember that a lot of people are in my life for a season, and I don't know the length of that season. So I can't always be attached to the person because they may have just been there for the next hour. They may be there for the next year. They may be there for the rest of my life. I don't know. But I know this, when I start building my life based on my values, the people don't fit into those values or not aligned with those values, I have to let go because their values are affecting mine. And that meant that when I decided I was no longer using, I'm going to say this, and I think it'll bring it all the way home here. When I decided I wanted to get good at getting high, so when I talk about recovery, a lot of that is talking about recovery from using drugs and alcohol. When I wanted to get high, you know what I did? Guess what I did? I started hanging with dope fiends. I started hanging with dope boys. And guess what I learned? I learned how to be a dope fiend and a facilitator. Okay, let's put it that way, right? What that means is as I got around these people, I started learning from them how to do these activities better, right? So that took that same process when it came to trying to align myself with the right business. I started finding great people such as yourself who are doing things. It took time to figure out who those people are. But I started aligning myself with the right coaches. I started aligning myself with the right mentors and the right crowd around me to become part of my mastermind and see what they're doing and start saying, I want to do what you do. How do you do that? So that's how it works. Everybody else had to go to the left, to the left. You know what I'm saying? That's they had to go.
So just a mental note, I am forever holding the image of you being a nerd in my mind.
Oh, yeah. I am a triple threat myself. I got the bronze, the beauty, and the brains. I'm just telling you, it's all there.
I'm just going to forever hold that into my mind. Just know that when we had this conversation in about 40 years, that I'm going to be like, remember when you said you were a nerd? I'm going to bring it all back for you. But you definitely hit on some hot topics because, again, there are a lot that tell you fake it till you make it. There are a lot that tell you, and these are gurus. These are gurus and experts and influencers that tell you, just go in and connect with as many people as you can. Just go out. And you end up in the first 5 years. I tell people the first 5 years, you end up collecting information, people, not even business cards. You collect people, information, people, but you do absolutely nothing with it.
Yeah.
It's like it's a waste of that first couple years of business. It's like you've wasted those years because you connected with people by getting their name or sending them a friend request, but you never took it any deeper. And that's always going to be the piece that really, you know, shoots it to a whole nother level, is when I take it deeper. I can make the connection. I can connect with Oprah today.
Mm-hmm.
But am I going to make it a lasting relationship?
Absolutely. Now, I will add this piece on there. I changed my understanding of what this fake it till you make it means. Because initially it was like as you're saying, like I got to present myself as this certain type of person, and it's not me. Okay. Now, that understanding, that process, that strategy is flawed, because therefore I'm not being myself. And then when it's time for me, I get confidence in my abilities, I can't come across as confident, which is how I'm going to close deals and how to get people, you know, really connect with people. Because if you're meeting their representative, like you do in the first couple of dates, right, you're not really getting to know that person, right? So after about 3 months, then you finally get to reach the right person when you're dating, and you're like, wait a minute, you're not who I met. You don't want to do that in business, right? And that's kind of what happened with here there. But here's the other side of that. If I look at high performance strategy, there's a thing called an alter ego. Now, that means that but this is something that I've crafted for a purpose to draw out of me the values and the characteristics and the personalities that I need that are part of me, but I just don't know how to express as well. So now I create this alter ego that I fake or step into when it goes into those processes. And the more I do that, step into the alter ego, that faking it and being that best version of myself, I become that. That's a whole different mindset to faking it till you make it. And it is a process that you've been using since childhood. When you were a child saying, I want to be this cop. I want to be this businesswoman. I want to be the veterinarian. You're doing it and playing around the house and becoming that. Right? And taking on those characteristics. You do the same thing when you start getting into like college and they take you into internships. You're really not a marketer. You're really not a vet. You're not none of that. You're pretending to do that because that's what you're doing as an intern until you learn that process. Now, when I go into my profession, I can do the same thing. When I first wanted to get on screens and trying to get on stages, I created the character. You've heard me say, the professor. I created the professor, right, as someone who was able to get on stage. He had the confidence. He was competent about what he talked about. He can get up there and present with that enthusiasm. Now, I don't step into the professor as much anymore because I've encompassed those qualities into who I am. I don't have to go into that character anymore.
So very true. You know, oftentimes people look at me and they say, well, there's no way that you're an introvert. No, I'm very much an introvert, but I've had to tap into something deeper and something else in order for me to be able to stand on stages in front of 200, you know, a crowd of 200, or stand on the stage in front of a crowd of 50. There was something, I was looking to attain something higher. And so oftentimes when you're looking to attain something higher, I can't do it the way I've already been doing it. It's not going to work. But people get scared of that.
You're supposed to be scared. I mean, that's just natural. It is. If you're not scared of that change, then something's wrong with your programming, because we're programmed to stop change. Now, we also have this ability within us, God-given gift, to turn around and say, I can recreate myself so that what I'm afraid of now becomes part of my strength. And it's whether you have that self-talk, or if you have that, and then also, so you got this self-talk that's me, myself, and I, and we're having these conversations. Can I do that? I think I can do that. I think you really should do that. And you got this one over here that says, I don't know, man. And you got to decide who you're going to listen to. It sounds crazy, but you're doing it right now, whether you're trying to listen to me, hear my voice, and say, do I do that? You're doing it right now. Now, what I'm saying is you have that conversation with our inner circle. And then we got the people who just outside of us, you know, who we're close to, and they're having these conversations. When I started working with them, they start feeding into me. You can borrow those beliefs that I talked about in my first book on unlimited potential. You start borrowing the beliefs of those people around you, so you start believing in yourself and those things. You start borrowing that belief in God, because if he gave you a message and he gave you an ability to do something, he didn't give it to you without giving you the abilities to do it. So which means the aha moment, if we think about it, aha moment isn't that we've learned and gleaned something new. And aha means you're like, oh, I get, which means you just made the connection between something that's already in your head. You just haven't made the connections yet. So you're not learning anything new. You're just finally understanding what you already knew, right? So the same thing happens when God puts the gifts out in front of us, the vision in front of us, and you have the abilities, and now we finally get these people around us and doing things, and we make the connection between our abilities and our gift, and be like, oh, I can do this. And that's what we're looking for. That's what we call that self-confidence, or what psychology calls self-efficacy, the belief that I can do what I think I can do.
So we're not going to skirt past the fact that, you know,
science and spirituality, and it just,
I'm like, it all intertwines, but we're not going to skirt past the fact that you did that self-talk, talking to yourself moment a little too well.
Hey, man, I told you I used to hang with the drama students too, man. I remember I was going to be in a play in high school, and I was all about it. And I was going to practice for this, was a musical actually, and then I had to go rush off to baseball practice, and they didn't like that. Neither one of the coaches didn't like that, the players didn't like that, so I had to give it up, man. I had to give up the acting.
Oh, see, it would have been a perfect fit. I know for definite it would have been a perfect fit. You know, I always ask this question of everybody that comes on to the Speakeasy podcast, because as we're going through this journey, there are going to be things that don't go right. I call them blunders. Somebody else may call them, you know, interesting moments, whatever you want to call them. But in this journey so far, have there been any blunders where you can just look back and say, okay, that was not the best idea. That didn't work out the best. That wasn't my greatest moment.
Oh, absolutely. Can I remember who said it right now? I just heard it reminded of it recently was he says, if you're afraid of failure, then you're afraid of success. Meaning that I have to go through failure in order to get to success. Has been true for you since you was a child. You failed trying to feed yourself, and you're putting it all on your forehead and hitting yourself in the chin, all over your clothes, until you finally got into your mouth, and your eyes lit up like, oh, wait a minute, I got to do that again. It's the same thing we've been doing since then in order to get to our life. So what I refer to them as is falling forward. So FALL, standing for Freedom Assigned Life Lessons. That's what I have to realize. Is that I go back and look over how many times the places that I've fallen in my life and see what is the freedom assigned life lesson that their God has put in there. Now that requires, again, for me to go back and look. One of the biggest ones for me to look at is one of the biggest ones for me to look at is the first time I said, I need to stop using drugs. Okay, I need to stop. I need to stop this and change my life. And that happened way back when I was in college. When I was at a point in college where I was waking up every day and I had this it was a guy from the islands, right? He didn't go to college there. He was actually like in his late 20s. Somehow he was always on the campus in a dorm that had security. I don't know how he always got in there. But either way, he used to knock on my door every morning and be like, you want talk? That's the first thing he would say to me in the morning, right? He wouldn't even say, what's up, good morning. I opened the door and he said, you want to talk, right? So then we started watching a Kung Fu movie and started talking, right? That's how I started my day. And I would do my papers with a coffee cup, no coffee. It was a bumpy face chin. That's how my day was kind of going. Now, again, I am the captain of my baseball team. I am still on the dean's list. I had transferred over to an academic full scholarship because of my grades in college. So here's how I was living my life, right? These are the things that I was doing. So I was like, something needs to stop here because this is not gonna help, right? I didn't stop then. And it happened again 2 years later. And then I started getting in trouble. And every 2 years I kept saying, I'm not gonna do this again. And I find myself in jail again. I'm not gonna do this again. God, get me out of this. And it happened several times. Until 2013, when they told me they was going to put me in prison for 12 years. And I finally said, you know what? I really need to stop now. I really need to help. And it went from that prayer of, God, I need you to help, because it was like a selfish thing. Help me get out of this situation, to more of a spiritual and all-encompassing thing. I really need your help now, right? A submission, submitted to that power greater than myself that was going to help me do the things that I obviously couldn't do for myself. But from that, going through that process of submitting to a greater power, I started learning how to, everything we have here, everything I've been going through, that I have been given to me, is a process of Him sitting me down, God sitting me down, and walking me through my failures and what lessons I learned from those. Now I have people I work with in my recovery, and they've taught me lessons from there that are spiritual, mentally, emotional. I have people that are, my coaches in business, especially particularly talking about expertise. So I go back and I look at those same lessons, such as yourself, and say, what can you draw from these lessons and how can you pass them on? And as my mentor, Jim Rohn, said, if you got something to say it well, right? So you can deliver that message. Those same things happen. Then I come back to my family. They come back and says, we taught you this when you was, a baby. Like, I know that. I know that, right? And that's what we're supposed to be doing. That is one of my biggest lessons, and all throughout everything I do is what I learned from changing my life in recovery to taking all those principles and practice them in everything that I do.
I know that speaks definitely to healthy habits, because a lot of times we have so many unhealthy habits that have been ingrained in us. And even when we say we want to stop this unhealthy habit, it's not immediate. It doesn't happen. This is not bewitched. We can't go and just, twinkle our nose and switch. Although we wish it could, it doesn't work that way. So I definitely, I applaud you. First of all, I applaud you because I would never have met you. And all there is that is encompassed within Mr. Fortune, I would never have met you and been able to watch this journey that you've been on if you had not have gone through that.
Absolutely.
Like that is amazing. And even when we think about just the transformation that people have to go through when we're learning who we are, because guess what? School doesn't teach that.
No, it doesn't. That's not on the curriculum. We can't test for that on these standardized state tests.
Yeah, there's no test for that. There's no book on that in the school system. There's none of that. And so I think, one end of it is we've kind of gotten to a point where there's not enough people who are on the outside are saying, okay, let's work on who you are as an individual, that we have more on the inside that are saying, no, let's focus on this test. Let's focus on this. Let's push you in this direction. So I applaud you in that, because it also meant that you had to step outside of what everybody else was doing. Absolutely.
And that's what happens for most successes and that I've had in my life is, as Earl Nightingale said, that the opposite of success is not failure. It is conformity. And that's what most people do. So if you want to be successful, it's about stop conforming to everyone else is doing, because that's the majority.
That's it, guys. Y'all heard it. I know you were listening. And I know you're probably going to have to go back and re-listen to this episode maybe about 2, 3, 15 times. But I want you to let us know how this particular episode resonated with you by giving us a review over on iTunes by going to well, maybe not. Pause that. How about you just let us know on Facebook, because iTunes is shutting down. Maybe we shouldn't go over there. Maybe that shouldn't be the way that I send you anymore. But with that being said, guys, I want you to make sure that you reach out to Mr. Fortune. If you have any questions, if this is the journey that you see yourself in the midst of, at the beginning of, or even at a turning point, definitely reach out, because you never know how he may be able to serve you and to connect with you. So with that being said, let them know how they can reach out to you and where they can get the book or books.
Oh, excellent. I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that, man. Mine can be found at D Arlando Fortune. That's everywhere. Website, social media, everywhere. You search for D Arlando. That's like Orlando, but with an A. D Arlando Fortune. And you can actually find any of my books there. I've got 3 books. The last one on how to write your own book there, Overcoming Procrastination, again, Unlimited Potential. All 3 books, of course, are the different phases that I've gone through my life. Who knows what's next? The next one might just be making my fortune. I don't know. That's what we're on the process of doing. But you can find all those at darlandofortune.com/Amazon. You can grab all of those books there. Matter of fact, the ebooks on there are less than $3, like $2.99 and less. You can grab those and start continuing that conversation from there.
That's what it's all about, guys. It's about continuing the conversation. Why? Because guess what? That's why I bring on the guests that I do. I want to make sure that you not only have the conversation, but you continue it after you leave the broadcast. With that being said, I appreciate you guys, because without the Speakeasy Studio audience, there would be no Speakeasy podcast. I am your host, Altavise Pelzer, the voice coach. And until next time, guys, don't forget to press it out. See ya.